Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire wiring kit here on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. So our Roadmaster 7-wire to 6-wire wiring kits here, we're going to have a couple different options as far as the umbilical goes. And the reason for this, it really comes down to what tow bar you have. So we have the straight cord here, and you'd want to use a straight cord if you had a tow bar with built-in channels that allow you to run the cord through the channels on the tow bar. It's sort of a built-in method to prevent them from dragging around, getting tangled. It makes everything a nice complete package. So a lot of the Roadmaster all-terrain tow bars have those integrated channels. So if that's what you have, you'd want to go ahead and pick up the kit with the straight umbilical. Now over here we have a hybrid. The side that attaches to the tow bar, that goes to the towed vehicle, that's going to be a straight coil, just like the one over here. But for the RV side, the last couple feet of our wiring here has a coiled end. Therefore, it's going to do a little bit better job here at the motorhome side to help prevent any tangling and to prevent the coil from dragging the ground. And then last but not least, we have our completely coiled umbilical cord. So if you don't have a tow bar with integrated channels, you can still use those other two options, but the completely coiled one would probably be a little bit better for you because, again, you don't have to worry about it dragging on the ground, and since you don't have any channels in your tow bar, you will need something to take up that extra slack. So our diode wiring kit in our most basic form, it's going to transfer the signals from our motorhome to our towed vehicle. Now, the reason we need to do this is it's going to allow us to remain up to code for all local state rules and regulations. So while we're in our motorhome and we're signaling to others what we're going to be doing, we're obviously not going to be able to see the taillights on the motorhome, or at least not very well for those behind you. Therefore, we need to transfer those signals over here to our towed vehicle so others on the road can see what we're doing. So with this kit here, we're going to get all of our basic signals and lighting. We're going to get the taillights as well as the stop and turn signal circuits for both the driver and passenger side. So this kit does utilize 4 diodes. And what the diodes essentially do is they're going to install in line between the factory taillights and the factory taillight circuits. We're then going to tee into that with our motorhome signal. So in order to prevent any lighting issues from the motorhome from transpiring over here on the Jeep, we don't want to damage the electricals on the Jeep. Therefore, the diodes are going to stop the back feed of electricity, so the signal can only travel one way. So the first step of our installation, we're going to take our bonded 4-pole harness here, and we're going to give ourselves a little bit of extra to work with. So give yourself about a foot or so of this wiring harness tied to the front of our base plate kit here. If you don't already have your base plate kit installed, you can go ahead and just wrap it around, coil it up here. And then what we did is we actually drilled a hole using a step drill bit through this plastic skid shield here, because that's what we used as a pass-through to come back behind the vehicle here. And now we're just going to work our way to the rear taillights here, securing our wiring harness, most likely through the frame. We'll show you that next. So here we have our bonded 4-pole coming out behind that skid shield here. In your kit, you're going to get some wire loom here. I suggest using that on this first couple feet of our harness here. And then we just simply have it ran up here. I have a couple zip ties securing it to the power steering lines. These are pretty stable, so they shouldn't be moving around too much. And then I came up and over the axle here. And now we have it coming out just on top of this bracket here for our brake lines. I'm going to use a couple zip ties and secure it to this so it doesn't drop down or get inside our braking assemblies or mess with the wheels or anything. And then we're actually going to have an access hole inside the frame here. We're going to feed our wire through that. We're going to run it all the way to the rear near our taillights. So now that we have our bonded 4-pole harness here at the rear of the vehicle, the next thing we need to do is to actually remove the taillights so we can access the wires behind them. So we're going to come in directly behind our taillights inside the vehicle here. We're going to see these little plastic covers here. We need to go ahead and remove this with a flathead screwdriver. And then it's going to reveal a plastic nut here, which we'll take out with a 10mm socket. And here's what that looks like. So with our fastener removed, we should just be able to pull straight out on our taillight to remove it. And we're going to go ahead and remove this connector. It's going to be that red safety tab. We're going to press that back. Then we're going to depress it and pull out. So once you get the taillights free, we're going to see our connectors here, and you're going to have some fabric tape here going all the way from back here where it enters the cab to the end of our connector. So what you need to do is you're going to actually be taking some sort of razor blade, and we're just going to be piercing that fabric tape so we can spread it back far enough that we can install our diodes. Now, the fabric tape is a little bit of a pain in the butt here. You just need to make sure that while we're cutting this, that we don't pierce our wires. So you need to be careful about it. It is going to take you a little bit of time, but this is about how much we need to install our diodes. So we've got our wires pulled up through an access hole in the bottom of this taillight pocket here. It was actually, we had to go up and over the frame, and it's just actually a little bit on the other side of where we came out of the access hole in the frame. You have to get down on the ground and reach up and push your wires through that hole there. It wasn't actually too hard. Now, depending on which side of the frame we ran our wires on, we actually came down the passenger side. Therefore, we're going to be separating out our yellow wire here before we pull up these other 3 wires here into the taillight pocket on the passenger side. The next step would be to go ahead and test all of our wires here. That way we know which one is for the stop/turn signal circuit and which one is for the running light circuit. But we've already done the hard work for you, and we're going to tell you now. This lime green wire here is going to be for the stop/turn signal circuit, and this white wire here with an orange stripe, may look a little bit red, that's going to be for the running light circuit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut our green wire about halfway in between where the harness comes out and the end of our pigtail here. We want to give ourselves enough room to work. We're going to cut that. We're going to strip off some of the jacket. And then we're going to take one of our diodes here. We're going to be taking the one with the blue connectors. We're going to take off one of these spade terminals, and I'm going to crimp that on to our wire. Make sure you get a good crimp on here. I always like to just jiggle them a little bit too after it to make sure it is on there secure. I'm going to do the same thing for this other end of the green wire. Now I'm going to take the green wire here that came from our bonded 4-pole. I'm going to cut off the excess. And again, I am going to crimp on another spade terminal. Now we'll go ahead and connect our first diode. The outside on the diode is going to go to the pigtail, our singular wire. And then it doesn't matter which one we put these in. Just go ahead and connect them. Now we're going to take our diode with our 2 blue connectors and our yellow one, and we're going to do the same process here for the running light circuit, which is the white/orange wire. So the only thing we're going to be doing different for this other diode here, we're going to take the yellow connector, which is the only different one in the kit here, and we're going to have the running light wire that came down. This was actually the one that went to the front of the vehicle. Then we're going to take the extra brown wire that we cut off, and we're going to tie these 2 together. Just going to spin those 2 strands around, and I'm going to crimp on this yellow larger butt connector here. And the reason we did that is this is going to be our jumper wire that we're going to use to transfer the running light circuit over to the driver's side. We'll just go ahead and make our connections now. So again, the outside goes to the connector in. And I'm going to take this brown wire here. I'm going to feed it back down through the hole that we drew our wires up through earlier. So now finally we're going to have our white wire here, which is for our ground. I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess off. And I'm going to crimp on the ring terminal that came in our kit. We're also going to get a self-tapping screw, which we can use to ground it to the body inside here of the taillight pocket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach our diodes together so you don't have to worry about them flopping around. Just peel the sticky back off and stick them together like so. Now we can reinstall our tail light. I'm going to run the brown jumper wire along with our yellow wire down underneath here over to the driver's side. We'll meet you over there. There's going to be this same hole, that little tail light access hole at the back here that we can use for entry into the tail light pocket here. It was the same as over on the passenger side. Now keep in mind, you may or may not need to extend your yellow and brown wires. It just depends on how you ran your wires. So we have them down here, and we basically just repeated the same process that we did on the passenger side here over on the driver's side. The only difference is we don't have to run that jumper wire for the brown because the jumper wire is the one we ran over here. One note though, for the harness here, the yellow wire is going to be responsible for the left stop/turn, and then the white wire with the gray stripe is going to be responsible for the running light circuit. And now we'll just reinstall our tail light for this side as well. But we'll keep in mind, if you guys haven't done this before and you're not super confident with your connections and your wiring, you can actually leave the tail lights off until we test everything. I did this quite a few times though, so I'm pretty confident we got everything correct. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall the tail lights. So now with all of our diodes installed, we're going to come back to the front of the vehicle. We're going to be installing the trailer connector. So what we're going to do now is, we got some extra wire here. We've made sure of that. We're going to go ahead and cut some of that excess off. And then we're going to begin separating each of these. So now we will begin stripping off for each of our 4 wires here. So now that we have our wires stripped, we're going to go ahead and take our boot here for our trailer connector. We'll go ahead and slide that on. So now we're going to look at the back of our connector here. We're going to take a tiny Phillips head screwdriver. You can see they're actually going to be labeled. We only need to unscrew a couple of these. You don't want to unscrew these screws all the way because if you lose them, they are pretty small. So we're going to do the first one is TM. It's going to be for the taillight circuit. Loosen that up. Take our brown wire, insert that, and then go ahead and tighten down the screw. The next one we're going to do is going to be GD for ground. The next one we have LT, left turn. We should see RT, that's for right turn, and that'll be our green wire. Now what we're going to do before we actually install the trailer connector is we're going to test everything out. So we got our tester box here, which we're going to use to test the lights. However, if you have your motorhome, you could obviously use that as well, assuming everything is working there. So here we have our tail lights, our left turn, our brake lights, and then finally our right turn. So there we go. Now we know everything's hooked up and working correctly. So now we're going to take some silicone here and I'm going to go ahead and cover all of these terminals here so we don't have to worry about water getting inside, corroding, and causing any lighting issues. So this step isn't required, but I do highly recommend it. We'll take our boot here and we'll slide that back over. Now we can go ahead and attach it here. So luckily for us, our base plate kit here has these 2 tabs which we can mount our trailer connector to. Depending on what base plate kit you have, you may need to use the other bracket that comes in our kit here. It attaches to these 2 holes here. Then it has a flange up top you could just drill into the bottom of this bumper here. And that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Roadmaster 7-wire to 6-wire diode wiring kit here on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.